hopefully folks can hear me on the call?
Julie?
Good. Hi. Welcome. We're getting a little background noise, so just want to make sure everyone is careful about that in terms of, I think, not putting us on hold. Or muting, yeah, in terms of however your phone works best with all of this. Now, we're not hearing that noise anymore, so that's good. Welcome, everyone. I'm Julie Eklund. I'm the Assistant Commissioner here in the Strategic Planning and Funding Division at the Coordinating Board. I'm here with Jenna Heggie. Jenna is our new Deputy Assistant Commissioner in the division, and she's done a lot of work to help us get ready for this webinar and also in terms of the RFA. And we also have with us Linda Natal, who is a magician who works in a good way, who works in our contracts office, and she's had a very busy month because it is the end of the fiscal year, but she was kind enough to join us because she's the person who's going to be able to provide answers to some of the very specific detailed questions about how the proposal needs to be submitted and how the process works in terms of our contracting office. So we're very pleased that she was able to be with us. We have a short PowerPoint that we plan to walk through, and then we'll take questions from all of you. Just wanted everyone to be aware, I have been in this role for about 15 months, and I have been working with Education Research Centers. I've been chairing on behalf of the Commissioner the advisory board that responds to proposals that are submitted to our current Education Research Center. So I have had the opportunity to be very involved in the process. But I'm anticipating that there might be some questions you have about the nuts and bolts of how the ERCs work at the institutions. And so there may be some things we'll just have to get back to you on. So please be patient with us if we can't answer all questions because we do have relatively new staff in terms of working directly with the ERCs, but we will, of course, be happy to get answers to any questions that you may have for us. And so we'll just jump in and present the information we have, and then we would be, again, happy to address any questions or concerns. And I believe we are taping this, so we will make the tape available as well. Okay. So in terms of the Education Research Centers, they support the City of Education policy and practice issues in Texas. We have for, I could say it's about a decade, we have, they're coordinated through Education Coordinating Board. Originally, it was more of a joint process, and now we definitely have partners at TWC and TEA, and we have data from TWC and TEA in the database for the Education Research Centers, but they are coordinated through here, through the THECB. And there were rule changes and statutory changes that happened a couple of sessions ago. So you can look online. The rules for the ERCs are very detailed, and I would recommend if you are decide that your institution or institutions are going to submit a proposal, I would recommend that you go online and look at the rules for the ERCs, and we can post that location. I don't know, is it available in the slide presentation?
It's not in the slide presentation, but we can certainly post it to the web.
And I'll get it to you before we conclude. It's easy to find, so that I would recommend that. The Education Research Centers have data that represents pretty much a lot of data from the Coordinating Board, the Texas Education Agency, and the Texas Workforce in terms of what's collected. In terms of the Coordinating Board, it's really the majority of what we collect through the CBM report, also our FADS report. We have wage data from the Texas Workforce Commission, and the Texas Education Agency also supplies a lot of data for the RCs. The process is that the data is de-identified, and this may be coming up later, but the process is de-identified. The process is that the data is de-identified here at the Coordinating Board. We have a full-time staff person, and I'll talk about that more later, whose responsibility it is to receive the data on a regular basis from TEA and the Workforce Commission, and also the data that's coming in through the Coordinating Board to de-identify it in terms of the students, but we assign identifiers that allow tracking the data across the system. So a student identifier will carry through. So by student identified in the system, but one can track their data across. There are no names included, addresses, phone numbers, no types of student information included, but we do have all the demographic data that we collect about the students and, of course, information about their activity and outcomes as they move through the education pipeline. They have two ERCs in existence right now. One is at UT Austin and one is at UT Dallas, and these two facilities actually have had ERCs since the beginning of the availability of this opportunity. And but the statute allows for up to 3, and that's why we're opening up for additional applications. Request for applications. Eligible participants have to be from a public institution of higher education. So it could be a junior college, which of course our community technical colleges and our Lamars, senior college university, or it could be a consortia of any of those institutions. So again, it must be a public institution according to the rules. In terms of the consortia, okay, not having trouble forwarding my here. I'm trying to. Okay, in terms of the applications, there are some key deadlines that everyone should be aware of. We've asked for notification from those who intend to apply by August 31st. We also ask that questions be submitted to us by August 31st. And of course, anything that comes to us sooner, we'll provide answers question by question, especially if folks need those answers in terms of making a decision about whether they intend to apply. But we will have the responses to all of the questions available and posted by September 2nd. The full proposals are due to the coordinating board by October 17th. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pieces that we'd want to see in a strong application, or I should say that I think would be important in a strong application. Detailed information about security, about data security, must be included. We're talking about student-level data, and although it has been de-identified, I'm sure everyone who works with student data is aware that students can be identified by their activities and information and demographic information. And so it's really critical that the data be protected, that in terms of data storage, in terms of access to researchers, how all of that's handled. It is an absolutely critical component of the ERCs that piece be in place. So, of course, we would expect the applications to reflect detailed information that we want to see about data security and data storage, et cetera. We would also like to see information about the sustainability of the budget. For our staff person who works with ERCs is paid through the ERCs, and additional, there is some also additional staff time that goes in, and there's some staff time at the Texas Education Agency and the Workforce Commission where we are actually charged for work done there related to the data that comes to us. So it's very important that we, in order to keep the ERCs going, that institutions are able to pay those costs. It's also important that they have the funds to maintain their centers in terms of the work, staffing that's needed at those centers moving forward, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. The research agenda is a really important component also for the application. One that you'll see if you look at the rules and statute is that it's research really the key piece of the research, and a key thing that we look at when we're reviewing research proposals from the ERCs is that the research is of benefit to the state of Texas. I mean, this is a tremendous public resource that we have this information that's being made available, and so using it for the good of the state obviously is very important, not only to us but to those many stakeholders who have made these ERCs possible. So that's an important component, and so but obviously there's a range of research agendas and possibilities with this type of very rich and robust database, and so we would expect the applications to be able to demonstrate that there is a research agenda on the part of the ERC and where the focus is, so that we can have that information as part of the selection process. It's important to show examples of past educational research, because that also helps us, or I should say helps the reviewers, to understand what types of research have happened in the past, either at the institution, at the department, or other area that's going to be proposing the ERC, or of course across institutions if it's a proposal that's being submitted by a consortia. It's also important that a staffing plan be included. As I said before, there's a staff member here that works full-time directly with the ERCs in terms of data and also coordinating the meetings, but there's also at our ERCs that full-time and additional staff and faculty who work at the centers in terms of make sure that proposals are reviewed in terms of the process before it even comes to the state advisory board, but also that all of the systems are up and running correctly and security is appropriate. And a key component also to the staff is the review of all information, all data, before it leaves the ERC. So the process is basically researchers do have access to the student level data, but they must supply aggregated data to the ERC staff for review before any data is released to the researchers. So the student level data, again, is very carefully monitored and contained, and then aggregated results are available for research and publication. Okay. In terms of what kinds of projects have ERC supported, well, there's been a wide range, and there's been, I should have asked Greg how many projects we've had all together, but I know it's well, 100 over years, and generally at each advisory board meeting, we have 70 proposals that we look at, and those meetings are quarterly. So we're probably considering about 50 proposals or more a year, and we would anticipate that of course will increase with the additional ERC. Right now we have a policy that an ERC can bring up to 5 proposals for meetings, but also bring to us proposals for extensions or for additional data to be allowed as part of the process. And we'll add to that, when access is given to researchers, it's to specific data sets that they've requested that the committee has agreed is appropriate for their research. So it's not an open-ended, all of the data is available to any researcher coming in, but it's the data that they need for their particular research. We've got some examples here in terms of the types of things that we've seen, but it really has been a broad range, and we've actually started to see some more proposals related to our new 60 by 30 text state plan, which I would imagine or hope that many of you are aware of in terms of those goals. But we have, again, seen a range of work. Sometimes it's very focused just in the K-12 sector or in the higher ed sector, but there are also several projects that look across the pipeline and are longitudinal that have been approved. A little bit in terms of support, and self-sustainability is very important. The coordinating board does not provide any funds, and of course, as I mentioned, institutions reimburse the coordinating board for the funds for the staff time that's spent on the project. The fees, I think, if more than a year, it's actually higher, I think, or a little bit higher currently, but thinking about with 3 ERCs, that is probably an approximation. And again, I think we'll see if we can get you better information there. But right now, that's what we're seeing at the coordinating board. And then, as I mentioned, there's additional resources that are included. And I think that the cost of equipment is a really important piece to consider, and IT time that would be needed to, IT staff time that would be needed to initially set this up. But there is a need for equipment that's dedicated to this purpose. Next slide. And as we said before, in terms of specific requirements, we've got contract staff here with us, so we're happy to talk through that. Are we near here? Yep. And then here's basic contact information for you to have. If you have questions, we've set up an email address. It's also, if I understand correctly, the location for submitting intent, for submitting proposals, so we make sure it doesn't get lost, at least in my email box. I know I have so much coming in that I'm happy to have a designated location for these materials to be submitted. But this is where it'll be provided. We have put the RFA online. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at that before the webinar today, but that is the link that's included. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a specific link to the rules, but we will open it up to questions, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have, or as I said, get back to you if we need to do that.
This is Kathy Horn from the University of Houston.
Hi.
Good morning. I have a really simple clarification question on one of the components of the proposal itself.
Okay.
The section that is described as your effort.
Okay.
I want to make sure that I'm interpreting that to be you want that to be more comprehensive rather than work built on ERC data specific, correct?
Okay, and they're putting me with this. We're on page, for those of you listening in, we're on page 12.
Sorry.
This doesn't have to be work that came through an ERC.
Okay.
Specifically, it just has to be part of your institution's prior work, and it has to be related to PK, and or any connection between that and the workforce. It has to be related to area.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have questions or other clarification needed? I'm going to
May I have another question?
Yes, certainly.
Since I'm hogging the airtime. In terms of, and I have missed this in the detailed proposal, and I'm sorry, or the RFA. In terms of collaborative proposals, so proposals that would include multiple institutions, is that, would you, we would, that will come in as a single proposal, but are there specific points of clarification that you would suggest people considering that approach be aware of, either in the proposal itself or in any of the submission process, to avoid, sort of avoid any confusion?
Okay, and I think some of this is in the proposal, and again, correct me if I misspeak, Linda, or but I think it's pretty clear that there needs to be host institution in terms of collaborative proposals. So this,
right,
it should not be set up as a situation where you're going to have data going in from the coordinating board to several institutions in a consortia, and where they will be needing to have the IT capacity to handle that. It to be set up with a host institution. That's where the data will be housed after it comes from the coordinating board. And it's in terms of the researcher access that really the collaborative effort, obviously a part of it is around the research agenda. In terms of the nuts and bolts of that, the way it's worked in the past is that there's a terminal set up, and this is in one instance. This also does not always have to be how it works, but we have one instance where we do have access to to ERC terminal with all of the protections that are available at the host institution, but at an institution that's part of a consortia. So researchers working there still go through the same process with the host institution in terms of reviewing data, in terms of allowing release to those researchers. So the access point, I guess you could say, for someone in the consortia, then the host is going to be similar to the access point for someone who is a research coming in, getting access through the host, but again, having access to a terminal where they are able to use the data, then submit their aggregated data back to the host for review and approval. So I hope that's clear. The way these terminals work, the computer access works is that it's not possible for someone to email data to take a flash drive and include that. They're set up to be protected terminals so that the researcher will have access to this de-identified student level data, but will not have the means to remove that data from the terminal to get their results. It has to be set up to go through review. So that I hope that it just answers your question, but that doesn't have to be the case with a consortia. A consortia could be set up around a research agenda. You could have a situation where you share a research agenda and the host institution is submitting for all, and in terms of sharing costs and all of that, so that information could be provided in terms of support of the ERC, and so that's my understanding. And again, based on what I know we have in existence for one of our ERCs right now, but it is the important point, I think, is understanding that it is not. There does need to be a host institution, and we would expect a proposal to come from that institution, but to include that additional information. And that is looking at the details to make sure I misspeak. And again, we'll go ahead and clarify, but as we move forward. But that is right now. Now we do have something that says no access to data will be provided at any location out of the awarded host institution, and that is a little bit different. In fact, I probably should have attention to that. We do have a situation again where it is a terminal that is the host institution is responsible for the terminal. It is not access to the student level data in a database. We'll go ahead and make sure we get that clarified in writing. Does that sound good, Linda? Because I could how there might be some misunderstanding around that language. So we'll get that clarified.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Rudy Reyna at UTSA.
Hi, Rudy.
Hi. I just got the information this morning, but I wanted to go ahead and try to, we're just talking about regarding access to data. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
In terms of the access for researchers to data?
Right.
Or in terms specifically to the researchers?
Yes.
Okay. So, as mentioned, we de-identify the data here. I also haven't talked about supplemental data, but sometimes research proposals come in where a researcher has specific data that they're working on for a project, and wants that data to be included, and we have pretty strict requirements around that, but we do allow it, and it's that we don't want to have a situation where a researcher has direct access to supplemental data and has student identifiers in that, and then is working at the same time on data at an ERC and could make a determination about identity of the data that's available in the ERC. So generally there's a situation where supplemental data can be added if the researcher doesn't have access to it otherwise, and we have certain rules for destruction depending on the type of data that is. So it's something that's allowable, but we're careful about that. So that's one thing that we're sometimes asked about in terms of research proposals, the type of research that can be done. The other piece in terms of access, and I'm trying to think what I haven't said in my prior comments. And Jenna, have you got something?
If you're interested in all the data that is available in terms of variables and what's there in terms of K-12, higher ed, and workforce, The UT Austin ERC has a really nice website where they make available for any researcher or anyone looking that if you want to get specific about which variables you might want to include in a specific research proposal or just to get a feel for the kind of information that's available, that's all listed.
Okay, they're all the variables are there that
Yep.
are generally available. And so if an ERC is set up at a particular, the third one, how or what geographic area ends up basically requesting service from that ERC?
Right now, we don't have a situation where ERCs are serving specific geographic areas per se. Right. And obviously, we've got an ERC at UT Dallas. There's one at UT Austin, and for some researchers, they'll apply through UT Dallas because it's more either in that area or it's more convenient for them to be there. Same thing for UT Austin. So there's no specific geographic boundaries, but I think we see, but again, each of the ERCs has a, in terms of their research agenda, there might be slight variation. I should say slight, but there's some variation there. Obviously, it's all K20 data. So that there isn't anything specific in the proposal that a certain geographic area needs to be served, but I do think you see it naturally. You see just in wanting to have it someplace that's convenient. We do have a lot of outside researchers who come to Texas to use ERC data, and of course they do have to come to the state. That's one thing that I hope is very, very clear, that it's not, researchers are not allowed to access this data anywhere except at the approved ERCs and ERC access points. So we don't have, we allow, and even within state, we don't allow researchers who are putting in proposals to get access at institutions that aren't included in terms of consortia. And you have, like we get a question come in. So we do see proposals coming from researchers and other parts of the country, but they are required to come and do the work. I do know that UT Austin has a couple places on campus where they have set up access, and they've got, I think, one on North Austin campus and one central. I think they've got one at the College of Education. So we do see access points set up way, but again, there's one main location, and those terminals have to meet requirements. For example, special to get into the space the terminal is, so it's not available for anyone to access who doesn't have that permission, and special passwords and codes, and of course there's a lot of requirements in terms of privacy that researchers have to sign to have access. And the ERCs have both specific policies and requirements, and in terms of data access, again, that's a critical component of this project. It's such a wonderful resource, and we would like to be able to maintain the opportunity to have these ERCs. So data privacy is a key.
For example, if let's say there was a researcher at, I'm just going to pick like Texas Tech, and is still in the state. However, they want to, can the terminal be up that's appropriately figured at Texas Tech to access data, or do they have to actually travel to an ERC and actually be there physically at a set access point?
They would have to travel if it's not part of consortia and the information that I provided before. If it's part of the right. So, and that's what we talked about earlier, and we want to. I think we probably need to clarify that language. But in terms of we do have a situation now where we have a terminal available at an institution that's part of the consortia, but not for a researcher who just is interested in doing research at his or her institution, but is not part of that consortia in terms of the ERC.
So the kind of the consortia, one of the, I guess, definitions is that if for example, if a proposal is submitted, and again, using that example, that was part of of that proposal, and that became, and that was awarded, then they could have an access point at Texas Tech.
And that's how it's set up now in terms of one of the existing ones. So
that's the value of
the consortia. That's one. Yes, that's one value.
Okay.
Obviously, the common research agenda, the resources, all of that would be a component of that. We had a question come in, and I'm actually looking at this, and I'm not sure I can answer it now, so we might have to send it later. I might want to ask our legal counsel. The MOU says the coordinating board owns all intellectual property, including programming code, that seems to be in conflict with the basic university intellectual property rights. I'll consult with our general counsel and get an answer to that. That is an important thing to recognize is work that's done